Stop forcing what God never confirmed. Some of you are asking God for a sign and you've been ignoring every sign that He already gave to you. You keep praying, God, is this the one for me? Show me a sign. But your life has already been answering that question. You just do not like the answer. Let's be honest for 1 second. How many times have you tried to force something that just wasn't flowing? You and I know it was not flowing, but you were forcing it. A relationship that felt like hard work every single day, that was draining your body, your spirit, your mind, and your soul. An opportunity that's failing, that keeps falling apart no matter how much effort you put in. A business that keeps falling apart despite you doing everything possible. A situation where nothing is stable, but you keep holding on. And for sometimes, this is very funny because sometimes we call it fate. I have faith, and I have to really strike a balance here within something, holding on to something for a long time and knowing when to let go. One of the greatest things that you can ever achieve in life is knowing when it's time to let go, when it's time to hold on, when it's time to pivot. The main goal is still within your sphere, but it's just time to just change the strategy. Knowing times and season is one of the key things that is going to literally impact your life and your destiny. Sometimes we call it fate, sometimes we call it persistence, we call it not giving up, but sometimes it's not fate, it's force. You see, when the time for something has already elapsed and you are still trying to hold on, I believe at that point you're already out of alignment. And when you are out of alignment, what you experience is everything has to be like chaos. Now, I'm not saying that everything you're going to do will be easy and all of that. No, sometimes, especially when you're building anything really, usually there's seasons where it looks like it's going to be really hard, nothing is working out. But at the same time as well, there's times and there are seasons when the season for that has elapsed. The season for it has elapsed, and yet some of us are still holding on. There's a difference between having faith and being persistent, and there's a difference between when you're trying to force something when the season for that thing has already elapsed. This is what forcing looks like. Forcing looks like you're trying to convince somebody, maybe if it's in the terms of a relationship, to see your value. You're over-explaining just to be able to be understood. You're constantly fixing what keeps breaking. It keeps breaking. You are exhausted. Your spirit man knows that you're exhausted, but you keep fighting it. And sometimes you might even be lazy towards something. I always love to say something. When you find yourself consistently lazy towards something, ask yourself, is this just laziness or am I truly out of alignment? When you are out of alignment for something, trust me, you feel lazy, your soul will not be happy to do it. And so that's what people translate to mean laziness. If you are the one always carrying everything in relationship wise, you are the one always initiating, you are the one always adjusting, you are the one holding it together, deep down you are tired, deep down you are exhausted. But because of you have already exhausted yourself, you have already invested so much, then time, energy, emotion. So sometimes walking away from something feels like you are losing. Sometimes even in terms of business, one of my digital marketing companies, I had to work away from. I knew the season of that thing was over, and I knew that it was time to move to the next level. But you see, sometimes because of the next level, let me tell you something. There's something people need to understand. When the children of Israel left Egypt, what happened? There is a tendency that you want to go back to Egypt because Egypt was familiar. Egypt was comfortable. But when you're moving to the next season of your life, sometimes between you and that next phase, it's a storm. And so there's a tendency that you're going to meet a Red Sea. There's a tendency you're going to meet an obstacle. And so you will want to fall back to what is familiar. And so this actually happened to me as well too, because I knew this phase was already over. But then moving to the next phase, it was beginning to become too slow. And so this was what was working before. And I tried to resurrect what I knew the season was already over. And guess what happens? When you try to resurrect what's already over, it just drains you the more. Something is dead. And it's time for you to resurrect it, to move to the next level state. But most of us are trying to go back to Egypt. Whereas in Egypt, we had everything comfortable. In Egypt, everything was fine. In Egypt, at least we are being punished. We are slaves, but at least we had food to eat. Now look at where you brought us now. We are in front of the Red Sea. You see, the level between where you are and where you are supposed to be, I always love to say there's usually a shift. People do not move to the next level because usually that thing, it's a struggle. So people prefer to stay in the status quo. And because your brain is designed to keep you safe, your brain will naturally want to keep you safe. Your brain will naturally want to make sure that, please, let's not take that risk. Let's just do everything the way we've always done it before. And just because you have invested in something does not mean that it's going to last for a long time. There are seasons in your life, and you should know when the season for something is already exhausted. Here's how it gets real. You are not just forced in a situation. Sometimes you are fighting what your soul already knows. Your soul already knows this isn't right. Your soul already knows this isn't peaceful anymore. Your soul already knows this is not serving me anymore. Your soul already knows, especially when you know that. How do you know you've come to the end of a season? Something that used to excite begins to irritate you. It begins to feel like a burden to you. At that point, the next season is calling you, but the next season will not fall on your lap like a bag of cherries. Sometimes you would have to conquer your Goliath. You would have to face the Red Sea. Part of you is saying, oh no, maybe if I don't give up, if I should try harder, if I should stay longer, oh, this is not going to work out. Maybe if I don't just give up. And now you find yourself that you're stuck between what you feel and what you are hoping will change. So let me give this an example. Let me use the leadership-wise as an example. You meet somebody, step into something, or you start a business, everything feels promising, you get excited, you see the potential, you believe this could go somewhere, but over time, it's what that things are no longer aligning. Or things are, if business-wise, you notice that the market is already shifting, the economy is already changing. Relationship-wise, communication is inconsistent, effort is one-sided, your soul is already fighting it. How do you know your soul is already fighting it? You begin to lose your peace of mind. And so instead of you knowing that, let me step back and see, you lean in harder. You start doing more. You start explaining more. You start trying more. You try, you invested in the business, it didn't work out. You did all the strategy, it's still not working. I'm not saying, sometimes you just like, let me just take a step back and breathe and examine things. But sometimes that's when we want to do more, that's when we want to show more. And for a moment, it might look like it's working and then it falls apart again. And now you're confused. Not because there is no answer, but because the answer keeps repeating itself. And unless you do something about it, you would not move forward. Alright? Let's say this loud and clear. God does not need you to force what He has already ordained. I'm not saying it's not going to be stressful. There will be challenges, but if something is truly aligned, it will not require you to abandon your peace to keep it. Your soul will know. Even in business, there are times when I work 16-hour days and it looks as if I'm not working because you are on fire. That's not to say everything is not going to be, that's not to say everything is going to be easy, but there's a difference between effort and exhaustion. There's a difference between growth and a constant struggle. There's a difference between alignment and you constantly having anxiety. So if you have to constantly keep breaking yourself to hold on to it, then you need to question if it was actually meant for you. Most times you are not waiting for confirmation anymore. You are just resisting direction, because confirmation does not just come through words, it comes through patterns, closed doors, repeated frustration, lack of peace. And at some point you still have to just stop asking, is this actually for me? Is this where I'm meant to be? You have to ask yourself, why am I still trying to make this work? So let me shift your perspective right here. Walking away is not failure. Letting go of something, of that business or that relationship, is not weakness. Sometimes the strongest thing that you can do is to release what you have been trying to hold on to. Because when you keep forcing something to stay, it's only going to cost you more in the long run. It will cost you your peace, your confidence, your sense of direction, and you slowly start losing yourself. So stop forcing what was never meant for you.